Cheers, everyone!
Hey guys, Ralph here from the Endgame Investor, and today we're going to talk about the basis trade.
You're on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know.
Watch it, bite you.
But before I do, I want to make an announcement that the Endgame Investor is moving over from Seeking Alpha to Substack. You can find it at endgameinvestor.substack.com. You can subscribe there for free now. And when I start writing on a regular basis at Substack, what I do on Seeking Alpha now, 3 times a week, market update, Austrian economics perspective, of course, then you can become a paid subscriber there for $20 a month or $200 a year. And in the meantime, you can all read my philosophical rants on money and some humor articles. And I've decided that the raffle that I will engage in order to encourage paid subscribers is that all paid subscribers by the end of January will enter into a chance to win a free Dirty Man safe. And of course, if you want to buy your own Dirty Man safe because you didn't win the raffle and you're despaired, then don't worry. You can get 10% off of your purchase of a Dirty Man safe by using the code NGAME10 at checkout at dirtymansafe.com. But anyway, looking forward to seeing you at Endgame Investor on Substack. Link in the description below. And let's talk about the basis trade. This thing is wild. Before we talk about the actual basis trade, we're going to go into this chart again, and I've discovered what is going on with this thing. So this black line is the volume in the security overnight financing rate. This is the market where you can take your treasuries and pledge them to another bank, and they will pay you cash, and then you will repurchase the treasuries the next day. This is called a repo. It's the repo market. How many dollars in treasuries are moving back and forth in the repo market every single night, except for, Saturdays and Sundays. That is this number here in the black line. So on August 17th up until October 2022, it was about a little bit less than $1 trillion a day. And then in October 2022, something happened and this started to spike. The volume here started to spike along with the SOFR rate, which is now 5.31, 5.32%. But we keep hitting new records in volumes for the SOFR. That means more repos are happening. So I looked at this initially and I was like, wait a second, maybe there's some stress in the banking system because there's a lot of SOFR trades going on now. It's a difference of about, let's see, we are at, the latest number is $1.72 trillion for December 20th, Wednesday, December 20th. We were at just below 1 trillion in October 2022. So let's say about $800 billion of a difference between October and now. October 2022 and now. So about 14 months worth of this stuff. Where is that coming from? Well, yeah, it's not exactly stress in the banking system, but it's something borrowing a whole bunch of money in the repo market every night, $800 billion more than was being borrowed back here. Let's see. It turns out that it is the basis trade. Now, what is the basis trade? In this article by Robin Wigglesworth, who shows up a lot actually, who's afraid of the Treasury basis trade? Maybe it's Virginia Woolf. No, that's just a bad joke. He says here he introduces the basis trade. Despite being economically the same, the first can be delivered to satisfy the second on maturity. He's talking about Treasury bonds and Treasury futures. You can use Treasury bonds to deliver into Treasury futures. So the basis trade is the price difference between Treasury bonds and Treasury futures for the same bonds. Why is there a difference in price? Well, he explains it here. Despite being economically the same, the first can be delivered, Treasury bonds can be delivered into Treasury futures on maturity. When the futures mature, the actual Treasury bonds tends to be cheaper than the futures contracts because of issues like different regulatory treatment and the ease of getting extra leverage with futures. What does that mean, extra leverage with futures? Well, how much money do you actually have to put down to buy a future on a Treasury and be exposed to the price changes of that security, which you would want for any regulatory reason or whatever it is you're running a retirement fund that needs a certain amount of treasuries. Who cares what it is? How much margin do you need to put down? You need to put down between 1 and 9% of the actual capital. So you don't need as much capital to invest in treasuries, which makes the price of the treasury slightly higher because it increases demand because you have to put less capital down in order to be exposed to the same security. So he says, because the basis is usually pretty small, hedge funds usually use a lot of leverage. They get this by swapping the treasuries they buy for more cash in the repo market and recycle it into new positions. So basically, hedge funds are going to sell short the treasury futures and buy the treasury cash and then profit off of the spread. If we go into the second article here, it gets a little bit scarier. So in this article, September 27th, 2023, the trade that could blow up the financial system.
It was at that moment in that dumb restaurant with that stupid look on his face that Mark Baum realized the whole world economy might collapse.
It says here, the hedge funds buy treasuries. The most popular duration is the 2-year note. Borrow in the repo or short-term funding market using the notes as security, and then take an equivalent short position in the futures market. Because the differences between the futures and the cash bonds are so marginal, it is leverage that makes the trade work for the hedge funds. How? There's both the conventional leverage in using the funds raised from the repo market, and then there's the synthetic leverage inherent in the futures market, where the margin they have to put up can be fraction of the value of the position. So basically, they're getting leverage from two sources. One is that they are borrowing funds in the repo market to fund the purchases of these futures in the first place. And the second is they only have to put up small amounts of capital to buy the same exposure in futures. So that's leverage upon leverage. The hedge funds, let's say they buy $1 million in treasuries. Then they take those $1 million in treasuries and they pledge it to the repo market and get $1 million or slightly less than $1 million cash in return. They use that cash to buy futures positions in those same treasuries at about 100 to 1. If we're talking about government bonds margin less than 6 months to maturity, which is the case with almost all basis trades, that you have to put down 1% of the market value of the bonds. So if they pledge bonds to the repo market and they get $1 million in cash minus the repo rate, then they only have to put 1% of that down to buy the equivalent futures position. Now, how much are they actually shorting? Well, we just saw in the SOFR market that the volume in the SOFR has gone up from about $960 billion a day to about $1.72 trillion a day. So that's about $800 billion. And if we look at this chart, we can see that this is actually true. Remember, we saw that in around October 2022, the volume in the repo market started to increase. So we're looking at this here, this line, October 2022. If we look at the blue line, that's the hedge funds. So they were short 571,000 contracts in October 2022. And then it started to increase those short positions. And now they are at a near record 1.7 million contract short in the 2-year treasury. This the basis rate also includes the 10-year note and the 5-year and maybe the 7th year. I'm not sure, the 7-year note. But taken all together, we can see that as the short position of the hedge funds, and as I move my mouse to the right here, you can track this number over here, the blue number over here, track the short positions, right? October 2022, we were at 571,481, and now we're going down, 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 increasing the short position. And as that happens, the volume in the SOFR market and the repo market increases to now 1.7 trillion. Now, as long as this continues smoothly, nothing bad should happen. But let's say the Fed hits a wall on quantitative tightening and the money supply shrinks to a level that there is not enough money in the repo market to fund these trades. And so one day, the hedge funds are trying to borrow money in the repo market, but they can't at those rates because there aren't enough dollars left in the system. And so what do? They have to unwind the trades very, very quickly, and they lose a lot of money, and they have to be bailed out, and liquidity in the treasury market goes kaput. And we have another March 2020 scenario where everyone is panicking, and the Fed has to step in and supply dollars to the repo market, or the entire treasury market topples over. And I really appreciated this other article by Ron Wigglesworth, entitled, "Leave Treasury Basis Trade Hedge Funds Alone! Leave her alone!" And you have here the picture of, the Leave Britney Alone video that went viral several years ago. I don't remember how many.
Leave her alone!
But here, it's this picture that really describes what is going on with the basis trade. You have here financial system, hedge funds, and look how buff they are. That is quite amazing. Those hedge funds must go to the gym. And holding up the world like that, I mean, that's pretty colossal. So we should be fine because they're just like so buff that, you know, you don't need to worry about anything anymore. So, in conclusion, what do we know? We know that hedge funds are borrowing about $800 billion every day in the repo market to recycle their basis trades so they can pocket a little bit of a profit in the price difference between cash bonds and futures on those same bonds. But when something goes wrong and there's not enough money in the repo market for them to continue this trade, it's all going to have to unwind very quickly, like overnight, and it's going to cause a financial earthquake. And the Fed is going to have to come in and print more money to supply the repo market so that these hedge funds can slowly scale out of their trades, which are not doing it. Some people are arguing that, oh, the short position has curtailed somewhat, very slightly. Yeah, I guess. But there's still a lot more to unwind. And meanwhile, the money supply keeps shrinking. And so at some point soon, there's not going to be enough dollars to loan to these hedge funds in the repo market. And they're going to hit a wall as the Fed keeps shrinking its balance sheet and taking more money out of existence by selling bonds and taking those dollars into its black hole, never to return until the next round of money printing. When the black hole hits, we're going to know there's going to be another Repocalypse, and these hedge funds are all going to go bankrupt or on the verge of it until the Fed says, okay, we'll bail you all out again, and then everything's going to be fine. Except, of course, we'll probably be in the endgame. This is Rafi of the Endgame Investor, reminding you that the Endgame Investor is moving to Substack. Subscribe there and become a paid subscriber by the end of January in order to enter a raffle where the winner will get a free Dirty Man safe. I'll see you guys on Wednesday when I speak to Monaco 64.